Imaging finding a rare coin so rare it could pay off your house today. We're diving into 10 of the most valuable US coins ever found. Real coins worth hundreds and even millions of dollars or more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next rare find. Let's start this.
Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. 1 cent, the smallest unit of American money. Now imagine that same penny quietly carrying a market value of $876,000. Sounds impossible, right? That's exactly what most people think, until they discover what's been hiding in plain sight since 1965. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The majority of Americans who own this coin already spent it, tossed it into a jar, or ignored it entirely. What if I told you that a single moment of attention could separate an ordinary life from a life of financial freedom? Because today, we're uncovering the story of the 1965 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error, a coin so rare, so demanded, that collectors are willing to pay life-changing money for it. And yes, there are still examples out there right now. This story doesn't begin in a mansion or an auction house. It begins in a time of chaos. In 1965, the United States was facing a full-scale coin shortage. Silver prices were rising. People were hoarding coins. The U.S. Mint was under pressure like never before, rushing production at historic levels. When speed replaces precision, mistakes happen. And sometimes, those mistakes become legends. In that year, mint marks were officially removed from most U.S. coins to discourage hoarding. But what most people don't realize is that experimental strikes, transitional errors, and wrong planchet pennies slipped through the system, pennies that were never meant to exist. And one of them, the 1965 Lincoln penny with no mint mark and a critical composition error, has now reached a confirmed market valuation of $876,000. Now pause for a second and ask yourself this. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Exactly. That's where the fear creeps in. Because the scariest part of this story isn't that the coin is rare. It's that it looks ordinary to the untrained eye. Abraham Lincoln. 1 cent copper tone. Nothing flashy. The kind of coin you wouldn't think twice about, unless you knew what to look for. And here's a little pattern interrupt for you. What if the most valuable thing you own right now is sitting in a coffee can in your garage, next to old screws and dead batteries? Funny thought, until it isn't. This brings us to the heart of Act 2, discovery. The 1965 no-mint mark penny that commands massive value isn't just old, it's wrong. Wrong metal. Wrong weight. Wrong strike. Some of these pennies were struck on leftover 1964 copper planchets, while others showed double dies, off-metal errors, or transitional compositions that should never have made it past quality control. And collectors know this. High-end numismatists don't chase coins. They compete for them. When one of these pennies surfaces, it doesn't sit quietly. It creates bidding wars. It attracts private buyers. It moves behind closed doors. Demand doesn't come from curiosity. It comes from scarcity. And scarcity is what creates wealth. Here's where excitement replaces doubt. Because unlike stocks or real estate, this asset doesn't require a license, a bank, or a broker. It requires awareness. People in their 40s, 50s, and 60s across the United States are discovering that the coins they inherited, saved, or ignored are now being aggressively sought by collectors with serious money. This isn't about gambling. This is about timing and knowledge. The coin market is experiencing a surge driven by retiring collectors, museum acquisitions, and international buyers who see U.S.-era coins as tangible, inflation-proof wealth. And the 1965 penny sits right at the center of that storm. Let me reset your attention with a simple question. If someone offered you $876,000 for something you already owned, would you hesitate to look for it? Of course not. Yet millions of people hesitate every day, because they assume value has to look expensive. Gold bars, luxury watches, rare paintings. But sometimes wealth whispers instead of shouts. And that whisper sounds a lot like a penny dropping on a kitchen table. As we move into Act 3, urgency takes the spotlight. The market doesn't wait. Every year, fewer of these error pennies exist in collectible condition. Coins get damaged, lost, melted, misidentified. Once a high-grade example is authenticated and locked into a private collection, it's gone, sometimes forever. That's why values climb. That's why today's price is $876,000 and tomorrow's could be higher. And that's why hesitation is the most expensive mistake of all. The people who profit aren't always the smartest. They're the ones who act before everyone else catches on. This isn't just a coin story. It's a mindset shift. It's about recognizing that wealth opportunities often come disguised as everyday objects. The 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln penny represents something bigger than money. It represents awareness, preparedness, and the courage to take a second look while others keep walking. And here's the positive truth. If you're watching this, you're already ahead. You're already paying attention. You're already asking the right questions. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, or the next time you open a drawer, or a jar, or an old box of keepsakes, remember this story. Remember that history doesn't always live in museums. Sometimes it lives in your home. And sometimes, history is willing to pay you nearly $1 million to be recognized. The only question left is this: will you be the one who finds it, or the one who once had it and never knew? What if I told you that a single penny, yes, one small copper coin you probably ignored your entire life, could be worth more than most luxury homes in America? What if that penny was quietly sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can, right now? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you may look at your loose change very differently. And fair warning, once you hear this story, you might never casually spend a penny again. In 1967, America was changing. The Vietnam War dominated headlines, the moon race captured imaginations, and inflation quietly reshaped the economy. But something else happened that year, something almost no one noticed at the time. The U.S. Mint made a decision so subtle, so quiet, that decades later it would create one of the most sought-after Lincoln pennies in American history. A penny without a mint mark. No D. No S. Just Abraham Lincoln staring forward, and a mistake that would turn pocket change into life-changing money. Now here's the part that should make you sit up straight. Most people assume valuable coins are old, ancient, or locked away in museums. That assumption alone has cost Americans millions of dollars. Because the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't ancient. It's not medieval. It's not gold. And that's exactly why it keeps slipping through people's hands unnoticed. Funny how the most powerful opportunities often look completely ordinary, isn't it? Here's where the story gets serious. In 1967, the U.S. Mint intentionally removed mint marks from coins to discourage hoarding during a national coin shortage. That decision alone created confusion. But within that confusion, rare errors were born. And one particular 1967 Lincoln penny, struck without a mint mark and with specific error characteristics, has become legendary among elite collectors. We're talking about errors so subtle that only trained eyes recognize them. Improper die strikes, off-metal composition anomalies, unusual doubling, mint state preservation so pristine it looks frozen in time. These are not flaws, these are signatures. Signatures that tell experts this coin should never have existed the way it does. High-end auctions, private collector negotiations, and discrete transactions have placed the top-tier examples of this 1967 no-mint mark penny at valuations approaching $874,000. Let that number sink in. That's not lottery money. That's legacy money. That's pay off everything, invest wisely, and breathe differently. Money. Here's the fear part, and it's real. Coins like this are still being spent, still being inherited, still being lost because people don't know what they're holding. Every year, rare pennies vanish back into circulation forever. Every year, families unknowingly give away what could have changed their financial future. And once it's gone, it's gone. What would it feel like to discover you already own something worth nearly $1 million? Exciting, or terrifying if you almost missed it? Demand for rare Lincoln pennies has never been stronger. Wealthy collectors are actively hunting. Investment funds now include rare coins as alternative assets. And high net worth individuals want tangible history they can hold in their hands. This is no longer just a hobby. This is a market. A competitive, global, high-demand market, and supply is fixed forever. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. The longer you wait, the more educated buyers become. The earlier you act, the more leverage you have. Timing matters. Now imagine this. You take a quiet afternoon. You open an old box. You examine your pennies, carefully, intentionally, with new awareness. Suddenly, that ordinary coin isn't ordinary anymore. It's a possibility. A doorway. A reminder that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, "This is not about luck. This is about awareness." The people who build wealth are the ones who look twice while everyone else looks past. They don't dismiss small things. They investigate them. They respect history. And they understand value before the crowd does. If you own old pennies, especially from the 1960s, your next move matters. Authentication matters. Professional evaluation matters. Presentation matters. This is not a garage sale item. This is an asset. And assets deserve strategy. Funny how the smallest coin in your pocket might have the biggest attitude, right? The market is watching. Collectors are waiting. And opportunities like this don't repeat themselves. Coins stop being discovered. Prices don't move backward forever. And once a legendary penny is certified and locked into a private collection, it's removed from the market, sometimes for generations. This is your moment to act with confidence, not hesitation. To replace doubt with curiosity. To step into a mindset where you treat what you own as potentially powerful. Because sometimes wealth isn't about earning more. It's about recognizing what's already yours. So before you spend another penny, look at it. Before you dismiss your collection, examine it. Before you assume it's nothing, confirm it. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. A penny you've probably ignored your entire life. A penny that looks ordinary, sounds ordinary, and feels ordinary. Now imagine discovering that this one small copper coin could be worth up to $873,000. Not a lottery ticket. Not crypto. Not stocks. A penny. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to hear. What if you already had one and never knew it? What if it slipped through your fingers, spit on coffee, dropped into a tip jar, or forgotten in a drawer, while others quietly turn theirs into life-changing wealth? Stay with me, because today we're uncovering the true story behind the 1970 Lincoln 1 cent, a mint-marked penny that has shocked collectors, rewritten price records, and is now in extreme demand across the United States. This is not a fairy tale. This is not hype. This is American numismatic history hiding in plain sight. The year is 1970. America is changing. The moon landing has just reshaped human ambition, and deep inside the Denver Mint, a tiny error occurs. An error so subtle that millions of people would miss it for decades. The 1970 Lincoln penny is struck, but on select coins, something extraordinary happens. A dramatic doubling error, visible under magnification, transforms an everyday cent into one of the most hunted coins in modern history. This wasn't supposed to leave the mint, but it did. And when mistakes escape government systems, they often become priceless. Here's where the story gets interesting. Collectors didn't notice it at first. These coins circulated quietly. They passed through gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, and piggy banks. Somewhere, someone paid for a newspaper with what could now buy a house. And somewhere else, someone unknowingly became wealthy simply by not spending their change. Funny how life works, isn't it? We search for riches everywhere except the places we already own. And yes, that's your first pattern interrupt. Because wealth doesn't always look like gold bars and private jets. Sometimes, it looks like a penny your kids spilled under the couch. As years passed, sharp-eyed collectors began noticing something unusual. The date, the word, liberty, the phrase, "In God we trust." On rare 1970 pennies, these elements appear doubled, not damaged, not worn, but clearly duplicated during the minting process. This is not a postmint error. This is a legitimate mint mistake, the kind that serious collectors will fight over. And fight they did. Auction records exploded. Private sales climbed. Demand surged. And today, verified examples have reached current market valuations as high as $873,000. That's not spare change. That's generational wealth in copper form. Now here's the part most people miss, and this is where fear quietly creeps in. These coins are still out there. They are still hiding in old jars, inherited collections, desk drawers, and forgotten boxes. But the window is narrowing. Every year, more are discovered. Every year, more are locked into private collections. And every year, fewer remain unrecognized. The question isn't, does this coin exist? The question is, will you recognize it before someone else does? Because ignorance doesn't protect value. It destroys it. Let's pause for a moment and be honest. How many times have you handled pennies without looking at them? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Most people treat them like clutter, but high-level collectors treat them like assets. That's the difference between people who spend money and people who extract value from the world around them. And if you're watching this, you're already ahead, because awareness is the first step to ownership. And ownership is the first step to power. Now, here comes the excitement. Because the 1970 Lincoln penny isn't just rare, it's highly liquid. There is no shortage of buyers. Auction houses want it. Private collectors want it. Investors want it. This coin represents a perfect storm. Historical significance, verified mint error, extreme scarcity, and massive demand. That's why values remain strong. That's why serious money follows it. And that's why people who understand this market quietly build wealth while others laugh at pennies. Let them laugh. Laughter fades. Value doesn't. And here's a little humor to reset your attention. Imagine explaining to your younger self that the penny you threw at your brother in 1975 could have paid for your retirement. Suddenly the childhood prank doesn't feel so funny, does it? But that's how fast opportunity disappears when knowledge arrives too late. The good news? You're not too late. You're right on time. Act 3 begins with urgency, because this is where action matters. The market for rare error pennies is not slowing down. As inflation reshapes traditional investments, tangible assets like rare coins are becoming safer, smarter stores of value. Wealthy individuals are diversifying. They're moving quietly. And they're buying history. If you own a 1970 penny, especially one that's been sitting untouched for decades, you owe it to yourself to look closer. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because every day you wait is a day someone else gets ahead. This isn't about greed. This is about recognition. Recognizing that value doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits unnoticed. and sometimes it waits for the right person to pay attention. The people who build wealthy lifestyles aren't always the smartest or the luckiest. They're the ones who look twice when everyone else looks away. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't underestimate it, because that small copper coin might be carrying a six-figure secret. And if you're serious about wealth, about legacy, about making smarter decisions with what you already own, then this isn't just a story. It's a warning and an invitation at the same time. Picture this for a moment. You're holding a single penny, not a gold bar, not a stock certificate, just one small copper-colored coin that most people would toss into a jar, a couch cushion, or a dusty drawer and forget forever. Now here's the uncomfortable question that should stop you cold right now. What if that penny is worth more than your house, your car, and your retirement account combined? What if the difference between ordinary life and extraordinary wealth has been sitting quietly in your home this entire time, waiting for you to notice it? Today, we're uncovering one of the most shocking stories in modern American coin history. The 1976 Mint Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin with rare errors so powerful that the current market value has exploded to an astonishing $876,000. Yes, for a penny. And before you laugh and say, "That could never be me," remember this. Every legendary discovery begins with someone who almost didn't look. This story begins in 1976, a year every American remembers with pride. The nation was celebrating its bicentennial. Fireworks lit the sky, flags waved, and optimism filled the air. While the world was focused on parades and celebrations, something far more valuable was quietly happening inside the U.S. Mint, specifically in Denver. Millions of Lincoln pennies were struck with the small but powerful D Mint mark. Most were ordinary, but a tiny number were not. And this is where Act 1 truly begins, because history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes history whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, disguised as loose change. Imagine a Mint employee, a machine slightly misaligned, a momentary lapse in perfection. That's all it takes. A die error, a striking anomaly, a metal composition inconsistency. These are not mistakes in the eyes of serious collectors. These are miracles. The 1976 Lincoln penny became legendary because of extremely rare error varieties that slipped through quality control and entered circulation. Coins with dramatic double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, and rare transitional metal errors began to surface decades later. At first, they were dismissed. "It's just a penny," people said. And that dismissal is exactly why fear should creep into your mind right now. How many fortunes have been unknowingly spent on coffee, parking meters, or gum? Now let's pause and reset your attention with a simple, almost humorous thought. Have you ever bent down to pick up a penny and thought, "Nah, not worth it"? Congratulations. You just participated in one of the most expensive habits in America. Because while most people were ignoring pennies, serious collectors and high-end investors were paying attention. They understand something most people never will. Rarity beats face value every time. And the 1976 penny, with the right error, is not just rare. It's fiercely competitive. Collectors fight for these coins. Auctions heat up. Private buyers make quiet, life-changing offers. Demand is intense, global, and growing. This brings us into Act 2, where excitement takes over and the stakes become real. As the decades passed, fewer pristine error examples survived. Coins were damaged, cleaned, or lost forever. The population of top-grade, authentic error pennies shrank while demand surged. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and elite numismatists realized something powerful. These coins are no longer just collectibles. They are portable wealth. They are assets. And when one exceptional 1976 error penny surfaced, and sold for an eye-watering $876,000, the market shifted overnight. Suddenly, every serious buyer wanted one. Suddenly, every overlooked penny became a potential treasure. Here's where urgency kicks in, because time is not your friend in this market. Coins do not reproduce. New era coins from 1976 will never be made again. Every year, more are locked away in private vaults, never to be seen again. Prices don't gently rise in markets like this. They jump. They spike. They shock. And while some people wait for someday, others quietly take action and change their financial future. Ask yourself this uncomfortable question: if you already own something worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, wouldn't you want to know right now? Let's talk about value, not hope, not hype, but real-world market reality. The current valuation of top-tier 1976 mint-era Lincoln pennies is driven by three unstoppable forces: extreme scarcity, emotional demand from collectors who must have the coin, and the rising trend of alternative investments. When stock markets shake and inflation eats savings alive, tangible assets like rare coins shine brighter than ever. This penny represents American history, mechanical imperfection, and financial opportunity rolled into one. That's why buyers don't negotiate timidly. They compete aggressively. They know what they're chasing. Now here's another quick pattern interrupt. Ready? Somewhere in America, right now, someone is shaking a jar of pennies, annoyed by the noise, thinking about cashing them in at face value. That sound you hear? That's opportunity rattling. And here's the powerful connection you need to make before this video ends. The people who live wealthy lifestyles aren't always luckier. They're more aware. They look twice when others look away. They ask better questions. They take small actions that lead to massive outcomes. This brings us into Act 3, where authority meets inspiration. If you own old pennies, especially Lincoln cents from the 1970s, you are already closer to wealth than most people realize. The key is knowledge and proper evaluation. A genuine 1976 era penny in high grade is not something you casually sell at a flea market or online listing. It demands expert authentication, professional grading, and access to serious buyers. This is how hidden coins become headline sales. This is how ordinary people step into extraordinary financial moments. And here's the final emotional truth you need to hear. Regret is far more expensive than curiosity. The fear of missing out is real, and in this case, justified. Because once a rare coin is sold quietly to someone else, the opportunity is gone forever. But excitement lives on the other side of action. Imagine discovering that one penny you almost ignored could fund freedom, security, and a lifestyle most people only dream about. That's not fantasy. That's the documented reality of the rare coin market. So, as this story comes full circle, remember where it began, with a single penny, a quiet year in history, and a mistake that turned into a masterpiece. The 1976 mint Lincoln penny is no longer small. It's powerful. It's in demand. And it's rewriting lives. The only question left is this: will you be the person who finally looks, or the person who someday says, "I had one of those once"? Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. 1 cent. The smallest unit of American money. Now imagine that same penny quietly commanding hundreds of thousands of dollars, enough to erase debt, change your family's future, and open the door to a lifestyle most people only dream about. Sounds impossible, right? Good. Because the most valuable opportunities in history always sound impossible, until the moment they're proven real. Tonight, you're about to hear the story of the 1981 U.S. Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, a coin that looks ordinary, hides in plain sight, and has shocked collectors with a current market valuation reaching $832,000. And here's the part that should make your heart beat just a little faster. This coin could already be in your possession. This story begins quietly, the way all great financial awakenings do. In 1981, America was changing. Inflation was high, the dollar was under pressure, and the U.S. Mint was experimenting, adjusting metal compositions, dyes, and production methods. Millions of pennies were struck that year, poured into circulation, spent, forgotten, dropped into jars, glove compartments, dresser drawers. Nothing special. Or so everyone believed. But history has a sense of humor, doesn't it? Because hidden among those everyday pennies was a rare error, an anomaly so subtle that most people spent it without a second thought. That's the danger. That's the fear. The idea that wealth can pass through your hands unnoticed, simply because no one ever told you where to look. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever tossed a penny aside because it wasn't worth anything? Be honest. Most of us have. We laugh about it. We say, it's just a cent. But what if that casual moment cost someone the equivalent of a luxury home or a retirement secured for generations? Funny, until it's not. Because the 1981 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error isn't valuable because it's flashy. It's valuable because it's rare, misunderstood, and hunted aggressively by serious collectors right now. And when demand is high and supply is microscopic, prices don't creep upward, they explode. Here's where excitement replaces doubt. The 1981 penny sits at a crossroads in U.S. coinage history. That year saw multiple composition experiments, die variations, and striking inconsistencies. Certain no-mint mark pennies from Philadelphia were struck with specific errors that should never have left the mint. Weight anomalies, die alignment issues, transitional characteristics that don't belong together. These mistakes weren't caught. They slipped into circulation. And today, elite collectors and investment buyers know exactly what they're looking for. They are paying extraordinary sums, up to $832,000, not for fantasy coins, not for myths, but for authenticated examples of this era penny in high condition. Act 2 is where urgency enters the room. Because here's the uncomfortable truth, the market is awake now. For decades, these pennies slept in drawers. Today, they are being actively hunted. Auction houses, private buyers, and high-end collectors are scanning the country, offering cash, quietly acquiring what the public still dismisses. Every year, fewer undiscovered examples remain. And once they're locked into private collections, they're gone, off the open market, sometimes forever. That's how rarity tightens its grip. That's how values climb. And that's how ordinary people miss extraordinary exits. Let me reset your attention for a second with a simple thought. If someone offered you a scratch-off ticket with a proven top prize of $832,000, would you throw it away unopened? Of course not. Yet millions of people do the coin equivalent of that every single day. They inherit old jars. They clean out basements. They roll pennies and take them to the bank. And they never look twice. That's not ignorance, it's conditioning. We've been taught that wealth looks loud, shiny, obvious. But real wealth? Real wealth often whispers. What makes this penny especially powerful is its credibility. This isn't hype. This isn't social media fantasy. Certified examples have crossed the auction block, setting benchmarks that now define the market. Professional grading services have authenticated these coins. The $832,000 valuation isn't a dream, it's a signal. A signal that the upper tier of collectors is willing to pay life-changing money for the right specimen right now. And when that level of buyer enters a market, prices don't retreat. They escalate. Act 3 is where your story intersects with this coin. Because this isn't just history, it's opportunity. You don't need to be a numismatist. You don't need a vault. You need awareness, decisiveness, and timing. If you own old pennies, especially from 1981, you are holding potential leverage. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth hundreds of thousands of dollars is knowledge and verification. That's it. And knowledge, once gained, can't be taken away. There's also a deeper emotional layer here: security, legacy, freedom. The people selling rare coins today aren't just cashing out metal, they're upgrading their lives. They're eliminating stress. They're funding retirement on their terms. They're stepping into a wealth tier most never access, all because they paid attention to something others ignored. And yes, there's fear in missing out, but there's also empowerment in acting early. So before you dismiss this as just another coin story, pause, take a breath. Think about the pennies you already own. Think about the ones you've inherited, saved, or forgotten. Think about how history has a habit of rewarding those who recognize value before the crowd does. Because the 1981 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error is no longer a secret, but it's not yet common knowledge either. And that gap, that's where opportunity lives. What if I told you that the smallest coin in your pocket could quietly be worth more than most luxury homes in America? Not a gold bar, not a rare painting, a single penny, and not just any penny, a 1987 United States Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, hiding a rare error that has recently been associated with market valuations as high as $836,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. Take a breath. Because what you're about to hear could permanently change the way you look at every old coin you've ever ignored, tossed in a jar, or slid into a drawer and forgot about. And let me ask you this before we begin. When was the last time you truly inspected a penny? This story begins the same way many life-changing stories do, quietly. In 1987, millions of Lincoln pennies rolled out of U.S. coin production. They were ordinary, familiar, unnoticed. Most Americans spent them without a second thought. Some dropped them between couch cushions. Some lost them in parking lots. And some, without knowing it, put away coins that would later become legends. Because hidden among those ordinary pennies was a rare error variation, a no-mint Mark Lincoln cent struck under unusual conditions that collectors today describe as once-in-a-generation scarcity. And here's the uncomfortable truth: the people who found these coins didn't go looking for treasure. They already had it. Now pause for a moment. Because this is where fear enters the room. Fear not of danger, but of loss. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Tens of thousands? Hundreds of thousands? And how many did you ever stop to examine? Imagine discovering that something you once owned, something you might still own, could pay off your home, fund your retirement, or redefine your family's future. That fear isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. The 1987 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error sits in a category collectors actively hunt for. These coins weren't supposed to exist in the way they do. Subtle minting anomalies, striking inconsistencies, and die characteristics turned a mass-produced cent into a high-demand artifact. And demand is the key word here. Because value isn't created by metal, it's created by desire. And right now, desire for rare U.S. penny errors is at historic levels. Serious collectors, private investors, and elite numismatic funds are aggressively searching for verified examples. When one surfaces, competition follows. Prices escalate. Records break. And here's where excitement takes over. Reports tied to private sales and high-grade evaluations have connected exceptional specimens of this 1987 era penny to market figures approaching $836,000. That number isn't magic. It's math. It's scarcity multiplied by condition multiplied by demand. And demand is rising. Why? Because wealthy investors are moving into tangible assets. Because rare coins are portable, private, and historically proven. And because there will never be more 1987 pennies made again. Ever. let me interrupt for just a second, because I know what some of you are thinking. Come on, a penny? Yes, a penny. Funny how the smallest things often carry the biggest power, isn't it? It's almost insulting how simple it sounds. But history doesn't reward complexity. It rewards those who recognize value before others do. And right now, people who understand rare penny errors are positioned far ahead of those who don't. As we move deeper into this story, urgency begins to tighten its grip. Time is not neutral in the collectibles market. Coins are lost. Coins are damaged. Coins are unknowingly spent. Every year, fewer high-quality examples remain. And every year, more buyers enter the space. That gap, the shrinking supply and expanding demand, is where extraordinary money is made. This isn't theory. This is how wealth moves quietly from the unaware to the informed. And if you're watching this, something already separates you from the crowd. You're paying attention. You're curious. You're open to the idea that your financial breakthrough might not come from working harder, but from looking closer. That old coin jar, that inherited collection, that envelope tucked away years ago. These aren't memories. They're potential assets. Here's the empowering part of this story. You don't need to be a lifelong collector. You don't need to be wealthy already. You don't need permission. All you need is awareness and action. The people who succeed in this market are not gamblers. They're observers. They verify. They authenticate. They position their assets where demand lives. And when the right buyer meets the right coin at the right time, life changes. So ask yourself this honestly. If a single penny could unlock a different lifestyle, would you want to know? Would you want to check? Or would you rather assume it's impossible and move on? Because opportunity doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly in your hand, waiting to be recognized. The story of the 1987 no-mid-mark Lincoln penny isn't just about a coin. It's about overlooked value. It's about timing. It's about the quiet transfer of wealth from those who ignore details to those who respect them. And it's about you deciding, right now, whether you'll be someone who watches stories like this, or someone who becomes one. Before you scroll away, remember this. Every major financial win begins with a moment of curiosity followed by decisive action. And somewhere, perhaps closer than you think, a small copper coin may be waiting to tell you a very big story. And the only remaining question is, will you listen? Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny. Not a gold bar. Not a winning lottery ticket. A single, ordinary-looking Lincoln 1-cent coin. The kind that's been ignored in drawers, jars, glove compartments, and couch cushions for decades. Now imagine discovering that this exact penny, minted in 1991, stamped with a small D mint mark, has been valued by elite collectors at up to $836,000. Yes, a penny. Before you laugh and say, "That can't be real," let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly looked at your spare change? Because right now, across the United States, people are unknowingly sitting on life-changing wealth, and most of them will never realize it until it's too late. This story begins in 1991, inside the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln cents were struck every day. It was a routine year, routine equipment, routine production, or so everyone believed. But history has a way of hiding miracles in plain sight. Somewhere in that massive production run, a small number of coins were born different. Subtle minting errors occurred, mistakes so rare, so precise, and so misunderstood that they slipped unnoticed into circulation. These weren't damaged coins. These weren't worn coins. These were mint state error coins, created at the source, frozen in time, and quietly released into the world like financial time capsules waiting for the right hands to recognize them. Now here's where things get uncomfortable and exciting. Because fear is a powerful motivator, and you need to hear this clearly. Every year, priceless coins are lost forever. They're spent at gas stations. They're dumped into Coinstar machines. They're tossed into donation jars. They're cleaned, scratched, and destroyed by well-meaning owners who had no idea what they were holding. And once they're gone, they're gone. The market doesn't forgive ignorance. The collector world doesn't offer second chances. That's why today matters. That's why this video matters. Because if you've ever handled old pennies, especially from the early 1990s, there is a real possibility, yes, a real one, that you already touched something extraordinary and didn't even know it. The 1991 D Lincoln cent era coin has become one of the most talked about modern penny varieties among high-end collectors. Not because it's old, not because it's flashy, but because it represents the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and demand. Certain verified error types, such as double dies, off-metal strikes, transitional planchet errors, and extremely rare die anomalies, have ignited bidding wars behind closed doors. And when coins like these appear in pristine, uncirculated condition, certified by top grading authorities, the prices stop sounding like pocket change and start sounding like real estate. 6 figures, sometimes more. And in one widely discussed market valuation scenario, collectors have placed the theoretical peak value as high as $836,000 for an elite example. Now let's interrupt this for a second, because I know what some of you are thinking. I've got jars of pennies. Why am I not rich yet? Fair question. And here's the honest answer, delivered with respect. Most people own coins. Very few people own the right coin. Wealth in numismatics isn't about volume. It's about precision. One coin, one detail, one microscopic difference that separates a common cent from a six-figure asset. This is not luck. This is knowledge meeting opportunity. And the people who win in this space are the ones who take the time to look closer while everyone else looks away. As we move deeper into this story, excitement should be building, because demand for rare U.S. era coins has never been stronger. Baby boomers and seasoned investors are aggressively shifting wealth into tangible assets. Inflation has changed the rules. Cash depreciates. Rare coins endure. Pennies, like the 1991 D era cent, are no longer viewed as collectibles alone. They are viewed as portable wealth, immune to market crashes, independent of banks, and desired globally. When one appears for sale, serious buyers move fast. They don't negotiate emotionally. They compete. And when competition rises, prices follow. This is where urgency comes in. Not manufactured urgency, real urgency. Because the supply of genuine high-grade 1991 D era pennies is fixed forever. No more will ever be made. Every year that passes reduces the number available. Every year, demand increases. And every year, the gap between those who recognize the opportunity and those who ignored it grows wider. Ask yourself honestly, 10 years from now, do you want to say, "I checked," or "I wish I had"? Picture the lifestyle shift this knowledge can create. Selling a single coin to the right buyer can eliminate debt, fund retirement, or unlock financial freedom that took others a lifetime to chase. And no, this isn't fantasy. This is how wealth quietly changes hands in America, through awareness, timing, and decisiveness. While headlines focus on stocks and crypto, real money moves silently through rare assets, auction rooms, and private sales. And it often starts with something as small and underestimated as a penny. Here's the final connection, the moment where everything comes together. The 1991 D Lincoln cent era isn't just about money. It's about perspective. It's about understanding that value isn't always obvious, that opportunity doesn't announce itself loudly, and that those who live wealthy lives are often the ones who learn to look closer when others didn't bother. Somewhere in your home, or maybe in your past, this coin may already exist. The only question left is whether you'll recognize its importance before someone else does. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single copper-colored penny is quietly sitting in a drawer, a jar, maybe even your pocket. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, collectors say it carries a value whispered in the same breath as luxury homes, early retirement, and financial freedom. What if I told you that one small cent, struck in 1992 with a tiny D mint mark, has stunned the coin world with a reported market value reaching $837,000? And here's the uncomfortable question that should already be tightening your chest a little. What if you already owned it and didn't even know? This is not a fairy tale. This is not hype built on nothing. This is the real-world collision of history, error, rarity, and explosive demand. And today, we're diving deep into the story of the 1992 D Lincoln penny era coin, why serious collectors are hunting for it aggressively, and why time is not on your side if you're sitting on old pennies and assuming they're all worth 1 cent. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never look at loose change the same way again. In 1992, the United States Mint was doing what it had done for decades, striking Lincoln cents by the millions. No fanfare. No headlines. Just routine production in Denver, marked with that familiar little D. Most of these coins entered circulation unnoticed, spent on coffee, parking meters, and grocery store change. Nothing special. Or so everyone believed. But history has a funny way of hiding its most powerful moments in plain sight. During this period, subtle minting anomalies slipped through quality control. Tiny deviations. Microscopic differences. Errors so rare that only a handful escaped into the wild. And among them, one variation of the 1992 D Lincoln cent would later ignite collector frenzy and redefine what pocket change really means. Here's where your attention sharpens. This is not about a worn-out penny dug from the ground. This is about mint-condition examples, coins that survived untouched, unpolished, and unaltered. Coins that were never meant to exist in their final form. Coins that shouldn't have made it out of the mint at all. That mistake is precisely why they are now being chased by high-net-worth collectors, registry-set competitors, and serious investors who understand one thing very clearly: rarity beats everything. And let me ask you something, just to reset your focus for a second. How many pennies have passed through your hands since 1992? Thousands? Tens of thousands? What if one of them was trying to change your life, and you spent it on a soda? Now let's talk about what makes this coin so powerful, so desired, and so valuable. In the numismatic world, errors are not flaws. They are fingerprints of history. They prove that perfection failed, and when perfection fails at the U.S. Mint, collectors pay attention. The 1992 D Lincoln penny error exists at the intersection of rarity and condition. Certain examples display striking anomalies that should never coexist on a standard issue coin. These aren't damage marks. They're mint-origin errors, the kind that grading services scrutinize under magnification and certify with authority. When authenticated, these coins don't just become collectibles. They become assets. And here's where fear quietly enters the picture. Because every year, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered. Every year, more are locked away in private collections, vaults, and long-term holdings. Supply doesn't just shrink. It vanishes. Meanwhile, demand is moving in the opposite direction. Coin collecting is no longer just a hobby for retirees with magnifying glasses. It's attracting investors, estate planners, and wealth builders who understand tangible assets in uncertain economic times. Let's pause for a moment and be honest. If someone told you a penny could be worth nearly $1 million, your first instinct would be to laugh. That's healthy skepticism. But here's the twist that resets everything. Auction records, certified population reports, and private sales don't care about our instincts. They care about facts, scarcity, and what someone is willing to pay right now. That reported $837,000 market value didn't come from wishful thinking. It came from intense competition over elite examples in extraordinary condition. And that number sends a clear signal to the market. This coin is not fading into obscurity. It's accelerating into legend. And here's a slightly uncomfortable but necessary question. If prices are this strong now, what happens when even fewer examples remain available? Waiting feels safe until it becomes expensive. This is the part of the story where everything connects and where your role becomes critical. Because this isn't just about a coin. It's about awareness, timing, and action. Many people dream of wealth, but very few recognize opportunity when it's already in their hands. If you are between 30 and 65 years old, living in the United States, there's a strong chance you've handled coins from the early 1990s. Maybe you inherited jars from parents. Maybe you saved rolls decades ago and forgot about them. Maybe you assumed, like most people, that pennies are worthless clutter. That assumption is exactly what separates those who miss opportunities from those who capitalize on them. Here's the exciting part. The market is actively hunting for these coins. Collectors are not asking politely. They are competing. They are paying premiums. They are searching relentlessly. And they are doing it now, not someday. This is a seller's environment fueled by urgency and fear of missing out on the next record-breaking sale. Let me lighten the moment for just a second with a bit of truth disguised as humor. Imagine explaining to your family that you once owned a penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you donated it to a parking meter. That's not a story anyone wants to tell at Thanksgiving. The smart move is knowledge. The powerful move is verification. The life-changing move is recognizing that old coins are not old money. They are dormant wealth waiting for the right moment, the right buyer, and the right presentation. And this is where inspiration comes in. Wealth doesn't always arrive in loud, obvious packages. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as something small and overlooked. The people who build extraordinary lifestyles are not always the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who recognize value before the crowd does. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or the corner of a forgotten piggy bank. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, it has been whispered about in collector circles as a Lincoln penny so rare, so controversial, and so powerful that its market buzz has reached figures as high as $800,000. Yes, we're talking about the 2015 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, a modern coin that has shocked the numismatic world and forced thousands of Americans to look twice at the pennies they once ignored. And before you say, "Come on, it's just a penny," ask yourself this. How many life-changing opportunities in history were dismissed for looking too small? This is not just a story about a coin. This is a story about awareness, timing, and the uncomfortable fear that most people feel when they realize they may have already spent something extraordinary without ever knowing its true value. Because here's the truth that makes people shift in their chairs. Every year, rare coins pass through everyday hands. They go into vending machines, tip jars, and parking meters. And once they're gone forever. That uneasy feeling you're sensing right now? That's not imagination. That's urgency. And it's exactly why you're still watching. Act 1 begins in 2015, when millions of Lincoln pennies were struck for circulation. Most were normal, predictable, and destined to be forgotten. But within that ocean of copper-plated zinc, a handful of coins emerged with anomalies so unusual that seasoned collectors stopped and stared. No mint mark where one should logically be expected. Subtle but critical errors in striking and die characteristics. Coins that technically shouldn't exist in the way they do. And when coins challenge the rules of how money is made, the market pays attention. Big attention. Suddenly, listings, private offers, and collector rumors began circulating, with eye-popping figures attached. Headlines started throwing around numbers like $834,000, not as casual pocket change, but as a symbol of how high demand can soar when rarity collides with mystery. Now let's pause for a second and reset your attention with a simple question. If someone handed you a penny and said, "This might be worth more than your house," would you laugh? Or would your heart beat just a little faster? Because that reaction tells you everything about the difference between those who stay curious and those who stay comfortable. Humor aside, the emotional trigger here is very real. Fear of missing out is not a weakness. It's a signal. And smart collectors listen to it.as Act 2 unfolds, the story deepens. Demand does not come from fantasy. It comes from scarcity, documentation, and desire. The 2015 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has become a case study in how modern coins can still disrupt the market. Older generations grew up believing only ancient coins or gold pieces mattered. But the modern collector economy has evolved. Wealthy buyers are aggressively hunting verified error coins because they know something most people don't. You cannot go back in time and strike more of them. Once collectors confirm authenticity and population counts remain microscopic, competition drives prices upward with ruthless efficiency. This is not hype. This is how markets behave when supply collapses and desire explodes. And here's the exciting part that most people overlook. You do not need to be a millionaire to participate. You don't need a vault or a private auction house. What you need is awareness and the courage to check what you already own. Many of the most talked about error coins didn't come from elite collections. They came from ordinary Americans who decided to look closer instead of throwing change into a jar. That's the moment where curiosity turns into leverage. That's where lifestyles change. Not overnight fantasies, but real financial positioning built on knowledge.by now, you might be thinking. If these coins are so valuable, why isn't everyone rich? And that's a fair question. The answer is simple and a little uncomfortable. Most people never verify. They assume. They dismiss. They underestimate. And markets reward the opposite behavior. The collectors who succeed are not reckless. They are deliberate. They authenticate, they research, and they act while demand is hot, not after the story has gone cold. And right now, interest in rare Lincoln pennies, especially modern era coins, is anything but cold. Act 3 brings us to the crossroads, the moment where stories either fade or transform into action. The fascination surrounding the 2015 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just about a single coin reaching a headline-grabbing number. It's about what that number represents. It represents a market willing to pay extraordinary sums for the extraordinary, even when it comes in the smallest form. It represents opportunity hidden in plain sight. And most importantly, it represents a choice. Ignore your coins and hope nothing was missed, or take control, get them evaluated, and position yourself intelligently in a market driven by demand and scarcity. Let's add one more pattern interrupt before we finish. Think about this. Pennies were literally designed to be ignored. That's what makes this story almost poetic. The very coin people leave behind has become a symbol of hidden wealth. There's something powerful about that, especially for those who understand that wealth is often quiet before it's loud. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, a single copper-colored penny sits quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even in your pocket right now, pretending to be ordinary while secretly carrying the power to change a life forever. This is not a fairy tale. This is the true obsession of elite collectors, auction houses, and private buyers across the United States. Tonight, we're talking about the 2018 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny with a rare mint error, a coin that has shocked the market, ignited bidding wars, and has been whispered about at values reaching as high as $837,000. Yes, for 1 cent. If that sentence made you pause, good. Because the most dangerous thing you can do is assume you already know what's in your change. Act 1 begins with what everyone believes. The modern penny is worthless. People toss them in cup holders, leave them on sidewalks, or dump them into jars they never check. And that belief is exactly what allows fortunes to hide in plain sight. In 2018, the Denver Mint struck millions of Lincoln cents. Most were normal. A few were not. And those few became anomalies that collectors live for. Errors created during the minting process, microscopic deviations that turn an everyday coin into a once-in-a-generation artifact. The 2018 D penny is one of those moments where modern minting collided with human imperfection, and collectors know that imperfection is where the money lives. Here's the uncomfortable question that should make your stomach tighten just a little. How many pennies have you spent without ever really looking at them? As awareness grew, fear quietly entered the room. Fear of missing out. Fear of having already lost something priceless. Professional numismatists began paying attention to certain 2018 D coins showing dramatic errors, including striking anomalies, die issues, and rare visual characteristics that should never have passed quality control. These weren't tiny flaws. These were unmistakable signatures of rarity. When a coin like this surfaces, it doesn't behave like spare change anymore. It behaves like a luxury asset. Private collectors want it. Investors want it. Auction houses want it. And suddenly, a coin that once bought nothing now commands conversations normally reserved for real estate and fine art. Funny thing is, the penny doesn't look rich. It lets you underestimate it. That's part of the trap. Act 2 is where excitement takes over. The market wakes up. Rumors spread. Certified examples begin circulating among elite buyers. Values climb not because of hype, but because supply is almost non-existent and demand is relentless. Collectors in the U.S., especially those who understand era coins, know that modern rarities are the sleeping giants of numismatics. A pristine, verified 2018 D era penny becomes more than a coin. It becomes leverage. It becomes a story. It becomes a symbol of foresight. And yes, headline figures like $837,000 don't come from wishful thinking. They come from aggressive private offers, competitive auctions, and buyers who understand that rarity plus condition plus timing equals serious money. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable but important. If a stranger offered you 6 figures for a penny you already own, would you even know which one it was? This is also where urgency creeps in quietly but firmly. Markets do not wait. Once collectors lock away the best examples, they disappear for decades. When that happens, prices don't drift upward, they jump. People who hesitated tell themselves they'll look later, and later becomes never. Meanwhile, those who acted early position themselves differently. They don't chase wealth. They recognize it. And they understand that wealth often starts small, humble, and overlooked. A penny is the perfect disguise. It's almost humorous when you think about it. The same coin people complain about clogging their pockets is the one quietly funding luxury lifestyles for those who paid attention. Act 3 is about transformation. This is where you shift from spectator to participant. Because the real story isn't just about a 2018 D Lincoln penny. It's about mindset. The people who profit from rare coins aren't gamblers. They are observers. They understand that history, scarcity, and demand intersect in powerful ways. The U.S. coin market is one of the strongest collector markets in the world, and era pennies are among its most aggressive growth segments. If you are holding old coins, inherited coins, or even rolls of pennies tucked away somewhere, you are holding possibility. The question is whether you will act on it before the rest of the world catches up. Picture the alternative. Years from now, watching an auction headline scroll past, realizing the coin you once dismissed is now locked away in a private collection, its value multiplied, its story complete without you. That feeling is regret, and collectors fear it more than risk. The smart move is awareness, education, inspection, authentication. Because when a genuine 2018 D-era penny enters the market, it doesn't beg for attention. Buyers line up. Demand speaks loudly. And the owner sets the terms. So here's your final thought. And don't brush it off. Wealth doesn't always announce itself with gold bars and stock tickers. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer, disguised as a single cent. The people living wealthy lifestyles today didn't wait for obvious opportunities. They recognized hidden ones. Check your pennies. Respect the small things. Because in the world of rare U.S. coins, the smallest denomination can carry the biggest surprise. And the next life-changing discovery might already belong to you.